This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so now we have Stephen Jesselnick, who has been approved by the VA 100% for IBM. And so we're really intrigued and excited to hear how exactly that happened. So Stephen, go ahead and tell us about your journey.
First, I would like to say that maybe when we do finish today, if anyone has more personal information, I'm happy to give you my email. I'm happy to give you my cell phone number, and we can talk later. I mentioned that I was 25 years in the Air Force. I retired in 2011. And because I am now 71, and when I retired, I didn't have any symptoms of IBM. I really did not have any big medical issues. And once I hit 65, of course, I was covered by Medicare, and I have TRICARE for life. I tell you this at the beginning because I really never had any intent on utilizing any benefits from the VA. I was sort of encouraged by some of my friends that I did have a back injury, a line of what the Air Force calls a line of duty, meaning they certified that this injury occurred while I was on active duty. And I had that piece of paper, but I really didn't do anything because I had Medicare. And I'm sorry to say that here in Colorado Springs, we have such a poor VA clinic. Everyone is in any kind of extensive wait list for everything, that I was really discouraged by even getting involved with the VA. But one of my friends kept after me, and in 2017, I began to apply for disability. And one of my first pieces of advice for everyone is try to find a non-VA agency that can help you maneuver through the VA process. In my particular case, I live in El Paso County here in Colorado Springs, and they actually have a full paid staff to help veterans from everything from disability claims to education, housing, blah, 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 blah. And I just had a great guy. When I went for my very first appointment, he just asked me simple questions. Did I have headaches? Did my legs hurt? Did I have trouble walking, trouble breathing? And based on my answers, he was able to put together, along with that back injury, confirmed back injury, he was able to put together a disability claim. And if any of you have maneuvered through this before, or if you're thinking about it, sort of from my perspective, all of your issues, whatever they are, get sent to an appropriate VA approved physician to examine you for that issue. So whether they examine me for my back, or they examine me for my varicose veins, or they examine me for PTSD, if they examine me for anything, and that, by the way, is never the same doctor. So if you have 6 issues, you could have 6 different appointments. My second bit of advice is, after you find someone that is outside of the VA, could have been a veteran service organization, like the VFW or whatever is in your local area, then of course you have to wait. So you got to have a lot of patience. You wait until you get an appointment for your back, or for your legs, or for your PTSD, or for your unsteadiness, or for whatever issue is, and you wait for that appointment. You go to that doctor, and they check off that box, and eventually, all of those issues that you're making a claim for get fed into your regional VA office, and then you wait and wait and wait until somebody sort of examines this. Now, I never submitted a claim for IBM because in 2017, I didn't know I had IBM. My IBM journey did start when I was falling or choking, or I couldn't open the pickle jar, or it was tough to get up the steps. But all of those issues that I reported to my primary care physician, I never put it together that there was a bigger picture. And I'm grateful to Peter Frampton, because it was just a little, I think, miracle that Sunday morning he was on a CBS show announcing that he was retiring because his fingers weren't working to strum the guitar. And then he had trouble getting up the steps and he fell and he was choking. And I looked at the TV and I said, I have IBM. And that was in June of 2019, or sorry, January of 2019. Remember, I told you that in 2017, 2 years earlier, that's when I started my disability journey. And for me, the way it worked was I was approved for my back and other issues at 40%. But again, I told you I had a great counselor at our county veteran service. And after I received my 40%, he said, we are going to resubmit this for your for more eligibility, for a higher percentage. So again, I caution you about getting someone to help you outside of the VA system. I caution you to have patience. And now I want to
On a Zoom call.
encourage you to have determination.
Yeah, for the vets.
Okay, I'm out in front of your house.
Oh, come on in.
Hold on a minute,
Okay.
hold on, okay, go ahead.
Because it is a very tedious and long-lasting process. So don't give up. That's my third bit of advice. Finally, I was reapproved for a higher amount. I think it was like 70% disability. Now in January of 2019, I hear Peter Frampton. In June of 2019, I went to the University of Colorado in Denver, one of the doctors in the United States that has extensive IBM experience, Dr. Wicklund. So I already knew I had IBM, but of course we do the blood test, we do the EMG muscle and nerve test, and then finally, and all of this is sort of like Medicare hoops. You can't go right to the biopsy. At least not, it didn't work for me, but I had biopsy, and then that confirmed my IBM. That would have been about October 2019. Then, just sort of around that time, the VA third request for reevaluation went to 80%. But remember, guys and gals, that I had that confirmed disability that helped me a lot, because the VA will not consider anything that they can't connect to your service. And of course, none of us probably ever had any idea about our IBM when we were in the service. My neurologist eventually was able to document and speculate for the VA that my IBM probably started as far back as 15 and maybe 20 years ago, which certainly would have placed it during my time of service, because I retired again in 2011. I was diagnosed in 2019. So if you just do the math, that puts me back into my active duty time. After I was diagnosed with my IBM, I was determined that the other issues for which I was related for my disability, like my varicose veins, my back injury, etc., I was determined to add IBM to that list. Well, actually, that is like, in a way, starting all over. So remember, I said after you make your claim, then the VA says, okay, we want to send you to a VA approved doctor to examine you. But this is where my next bit of advice there, I'm just going to hold it up. There is a definite VA form that you're either a neurologist or a rheumatologist must complete. And of course, there's a number to it, but I'll just say it's the top of the form is your central nervous and neuromuscular diseases. And you cannot really move forward for IBM without having this form completed. In addition to that form, we were able to look on the VA website, and down here, this paragraph, you can't read it, but I'm just going to show you. That paragraph is word for word the language that the VA wants to see about a degenerative disease with progressing weakness of your proximal and your delta muscles, difficulty in getting up, blah, 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 blah. So it isn't enough that you just walk in and say to your local VA service center, it isn't enough for you to say, I want to start my disability claim for IBM. You have to do your homework, and you have to get competent doctors that sort of know how to write what you need and to complete that form that will help you on your journey. Of course, let me just stop now and say, my VA service officer had no knowledge of IBM. And there is, I've learned, a big VA book that has a code to every single sort of disease and illness and wound that you can imagine. But guess what? We couldn't find one for IBM. Of course, they find them for other muscular diseases like ALS or MS, but that was another big stumbling block, because how could they review me for IBM if they didn't even have IBM in their book? And I was denied, and that made me really upset, because it's sort of typical of the VA system of you have to prove you're guilty before they will believe it. So we appealed again for IBM. Remember, and I had simultaneously applied for a disability claim for other reasons, but I was able, and my VA service counselor and my doctor was all able to say, hey, this guy has weakness and his arms, legs, fingers, throat, and this is his, this disease has been long growing, or whatever the word is, I'm sorry. Eventually, we had to, of course, I told you we had to appeal, and you get a choice when you want to appeal whether you want to go before a judge, and that sometimes is more effective because you can actually do that by in person or by video, and the judge gets to read, of course, the documentation, but the judge gets to hear you and see you. And very often that has more effectiveness than just the paper appeal. And then sort of my 80% for all those other issues went to 100%. And so I am 100% disabled first. And then, but I was determined that I was going to be rated 100% for my IBM. So when I went to the appeal, in a way it wasn't necessary because I already had 100%. But I was determined to have this because there are other benefits of being 100% for a muscular disease like housing adaptation, wheelchair assistance, blah, blah, blah. So after, I don't know, I think so. So that was 2019. And I eventually heard, of course, all through the pandemic, you hear nothing. But in last year in 2021, I was rated 100% for IBM. And I'll answer any questions you might have.
Did your claim, was your claim submitted with any supporting documentation from any of the research for IBM?
No.
Okay. And how many years did you go through that process?
Well, if I started with my first VA claim, that would have been 2017, finishing with myositis 100% in 2021.
Okay, so about 4 years.
Yes.
Okay. Well, congratulations on getting the 100%. I know that there's many of us here that have that are on appeal right now. I'm on my 7th year of appeal, and hope to hear something probably after the first of the year next year, and I will certainly let everybody know what that status is. But we are encouraged that you got the 100% disability for IBM.
I also did. I'm at 100% disability for IBM.
When did you apply, and how long did it take for you?
Mine's a little bit different journey than yours, but timeline's very similar. I back around 2017 or so, 16, 17, I noticed I was having trouble opening the refrigerator at work. And so, I mean, I just thought it was, part of getting old or something. I was 55, 56 or so. And and we'll let you know, my job at the time, I retired from the Navy in 2020. And my job was working maintenance and industrial maintenance for Mars, making candy. Tough job. But anyway, so that, and I noticed it was harder and harder to walk up and down stairs. And I did everything pretty much all through the VA. I really didn't have any private doctors. It was all done through the VA. So it is possible. I was initially, when I retired from the Navy, put at 20% because I had bad knees. So they put me at 20% for various different things that I put in for when I retired. Never touched it again until probably 2017 or so. And I thought I was looking at doing a knee replacement and knee pains and all that kind of stuff, just an overall weakness. At the same time, I noticed that my CK levels in my blood work that the VA does every time you go see them, and VA is my primary care. What I noticed was my CK levels in my blood were extremely high, and they stayed high for several visits. For over a couple of years' time, it just stayed high. And I kept asking the doctor, and I went through a couple different doctors during this time with the VA because they're moving around or whatever. But finally, the doctor that I have now, she got me in touch with a neurologist, and the neurologist, that was in 2019. Yeah, 19. And the neurologist looked at it and did every test and set me up for the same, the electro EMG thing. And that's where they noticed that I had as the technician called it, a classic sign of myositis, and didn't know what it was, but it was just, he was really having to turn up the power to get any type of muscle response. So it was at that point that my neurologist set me up with a biopsy. And this is where, for me, it was just bad luck in the fact that I did the biopsy at right around Christmas of 2019. My neurologist retired from the VA at the end of 2019, into December. So I didn't get my results back on the biopsy, which the VA farmed out to the local hospital to do the surgery, and they sent it off to the Mayo Clinic, and it came back that I was positive for IBM, and that's really where the journey began in probably April or so of 2020. My neurologist had never really heard of IBM. I was wanting to see, this is during COVID, and I was wanting to see somebody face to face. The VA didn't have a lot of people who were doing face to face. My neurologist accepted me to talk to me face to face, and it was at that point when I was on the Myositis page, and I talked with one of the members who was 100% as well. I can't remember, his Edwards or something. Anyway, I can't remember his name. He sent me the information that his doctor used, which was a former Air Force doctor, to fill out the form and the wording that he used. And through my own research, and I give that same information with my neurologist, and she filled out paperwork and sent a letter, because if it wasn't for the fact that I kept my medical record, even though I wasn't supposed to when I retired, I've heard too many bad stories about people, the VA and the military, losing medical records. I didn't want that to happen. So I made a full copy of my medical record, and looking back at my medical record, I noticed that the last year of my naval service, I had complained about weakness in my legs, and I had been doing physical therapy for about the last year or so of my Navy service. So the doctor was able to contribute that to IBM, that it may have started back as far as then. And so that's how it got for me. And just like you did, I went through several, probably 5 or 6 different visits, because when I applied for IBM, I didn't just apply for IBM for my legs. I applied for IBM for my legs, my hands, my wrists, my shoulders, anything that IBM could possibly affect that I was showing some symptoms of. I filed a complaint, or whatever you want to call it, and I used Texas Veterans Commission here in Texas, and she just like everybody else, because of COVID, she wasn't in the office, so we did everything through phone and through emails. But she was able to fill out the paperwork, and then she'd send it to me, and I had to sign it and send it back to her. But we were able to get it all done, and I was finally approved 100%. I want to say it was in like early this year. It was like February, I think, when I finally got my 100% approval. But it was a several year process. I've seen the doctors at the VA farm out to review your case. I've seen one doctor, and even though I had information, I didn't have anything strictly from the doctor stating that about IBM, but I had a letter stating I had IBM, but it wasn't anything to attach it to military. Just like what you said, if they can't connect it to military, then they're probably not going to approve it. And he gave his opinion that he didn't think it was military connected, just because it had been so long ago. people out there don't understand how IBM works. So it took another time talking with him, and a letter from the neurologist saying that she thought it was connected to military, then I should be highly looked at for military connection. And it was at that point that they approved it. And like you, it went from, I was already at 50% increase because of my knees when I was thinking I was going to have a knee replacement. But they had taken it from 50 to 70 to 90 to eventually 100. And it was just, like you said, you just have to stay after it, be vigilant, and look back in your medical record. There's all kind of things that may have been put in your medical record, and I happened to run across way back in '85 when I had seen a doctor right after I re-enlisted for the first time, and there was something in there about my CPK levels were elevated, and the doctor circled it, but they never followed up on it. It was just noted that I had high CPK levels, which is the equivalent of CK levels. And then with my end of my career in the Navy, that showed me where I was having weakness, and it was just really just a bunch more evidence, so that the doctor was pretty sure. So currently I'm seeing that neurologist and I'm seeing a rheumatologist. I don't have a lot of pain, or if I do, it comes and goes, but my pain is pretty well managed by the rheumatologist, and she's got me on Deluxitin, and to me that's a godsend, because I don't have near the pain I did at one point when I thought it was just knee issues. But that's how my journey got to 100%, briefly, and so it's possible, and just have to be vigilant. And you can do it all through the VA, but it requires a lot of work on your part to not accept no. So,
Robert, which VA were you at in Texas down there?
I'm in Waco, Texas, and my neurologist and rheumatologist is in the Temple VA hospital.
Okay.
But I see my primary care physician is in the Waco VA hospital. So
Okay.
I bounce back and forth between two, and it's only a 30-minute drive for me to go to Temple. It's not a very far drive, so I don't mind whichever one they set up my appointment at.
Okay. And then what was the code that they finally entered in for both Stephen and you for IBM? Because Stephen said they didn't have a code in the book. So what is that code on your disability form, that code number? Do you have that accessible to you, or
No, I do
get that
not.
to Rachel?
Yeah, I can. I don't have it accessible to me at the time. At this
Yeah, I
time,
will put my email in the chat. And then also, Stephen, if you could give us the form number to that form that you were talking about.
Sure. Do you want me to give it that to you now?
Sure.
So it's the VA form 21-0960, C as in Charlie, -5. And the title is Central Nervous System and Neuromuscular Diseases. That's the title of the form.
Is it possible to get both case numbers from Robert and Stephen? I mean, because when we go to the VA, or we use like an attorney like CCK, that was very helpful on the burn pit, which I think Jim Creston's, his friend was involved in that. Robert, was it Robert Boyle?
Bill Rhodes.
Bill Rhodes, yeah, Bill Rhodes. So, but I mean, if CCK or a law firm looks at this, if they have case number references, it's easy for them to go back into the system because of the Freedom of Information Act to say, okay, here we've got 2 veterans that have IBM that are currently getting 100% disability, while all the rest of us guys are getting denied along the way.
I'm looking at some paperwork now, trying to find what you're asking. And if I don't find it while we're still online, I will locate it and I can,
Email it to me.
I will.
Thanks,
And
David.
if we could get a copy of that paragraph that he was referencing in that letter, did that letter come from the hospital or VA, or where was that from? But you mentioned that the wording on that paragraph was important,
Yeah,
and I've heard
yeah.
that before.
This letter. So
Yeah,
that was my veteran service counselor in conjunction with my neurologist, looking at the exact wording that the VA uses in evaluating neuromuscular progression and diseases. And we
Yep.
basically copied their language,
good.
and then my neurologist signed the letter.
That's great, but that's what we need is a copy of that. So like, I'm gonna go back to my neuro. See, I'm already 100%. But the 100%, I'm actually 80% disabled. I have 60% from Agent Orange because of ischemic heart disease, but I'm only 80% total service connected. However, I applied because of the 60%. You have one issue that 60% or more, you can apply for unemployability. And that's what I did. And they granted the unemployability. So I get paid at 100%. So my wife was kind of concerned, well, why would you want to go in and ruffle feathers when, but the problem is, just like I think it was that Stephen mentioned that, yeah, you still, there's certain things you can't get, like the, say maybe getting an exercise pool put in, because we all know IBM, really the safest thing you can do is get into the pond, the pool with, you know, a lift or something like that, and do exercises there where you're not fighting gravity, you know. And I already applied for that. They said, no, you're not service connected for IBM. So that's why I would attempt to do that in order to get that, even though the pay's already there. And what happens if Congress comes back and later on it says, oh, this unemployability, you're not working, you know, at that age anyways, because I'm 77. And, you know, you're not working at that age normally. Well, nowadays people are because they have to, because of money issues. However, you know, it's just another safety sake. But I wanted to get a copy of that paragraph so I can forward that, talk with my neurologist here in Ocala, Florida. And he, I'm sure, would help me.
And I'll be happy to provide that.
That would be great. I can give you my email, or if you provide it to anybody else who wants it, that would be good.
I think we just send it to Rachel, and anybody that wants it can pick it up in the group. I think that's the best thing
That'd be
to do.
good.
Thank you for everything.
One of the things that I was researching, trying to find that code you were looking for. For some reason I had made a copy of this page. It was on ICDlist.com, which ICD is International Classification of Diseases. And the one for IBM on the ICD list is G72.41, which is inclusion body myositis.
72.
So if you go to ICDlist.com and you put in, you know, what you're looking for, it will tell you what the medical codes are.
Thanks,
And
Robert.
then also, Larry, what did you put in the chat for me? SCT 723-15009, what is that?
That's the code for IBM in my records, my medical records from the VA.
What was that again?
That's the VA number
Uh-huh.
for IBM in my VA records.
It's SCT 723-15009.
Once again,
SCT 723-15009.
Rachel, did I send to you that Freedom of Information Act reply from the Veterans Benefits Administration?
I don't think you did. We just talked about it.
Yeah, we, hey, oh,
I know I sent that. I apologize if that didn't get to you. I will send it to you. But there was a, in my second Freedom of Information Act request, I found that the VA uses codes that are very proprietary. And in other words, the VA uses them and nobody else does. And they are, I think if one studies them, you'll find that they are very arbitrary and very inaccurate. That said, I will tell you that there was, I think, greater than 50,000 claims put in for inclusion body myositis. But when you read through the documentation, it would include anything from a wrist sprain to a shoulder dislocation that they just dumped into that category of inclusion body myositis. So we have to take all of that with a grain of salt. But Rachel, I'll send that to you when I return home off of vacation.
I wanted to say, since we're talking to Jim Cressman, on August 25th at 6 p.m., he's going to be joining us in an empowerment clinic, a webinar that's going to be called the IBM and ALS Connection. And we will be talking with Dr. Tom Lloyd, who has also written a letter saying that the two should be connected and that IBM should be, presumptive. So that letter helped one of our past board members get 100%, Chris Doder. But
When's
yeah,
that,
tune into that, please.
when is it again? What's the date?
August 25th
Bunch of codes, but
at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
August